Hello beadlings, welcome back. Today's tutorial is actually for this cutie little rave dragon, and this is a pattern that was sent in to me by Teddy Bears Beads. They actually were like, hey, I made this thing, I have no idea how to make tutorials, but if you would like to, I will send you the instructions and you can make a tutorial about it. And they are so stinking cute. Like, look at these. I've done a bunch of experimentating with the pattern and tweaked a couple of things. And I am so excited to tell you how to make these. So if you would like to skip straight to the tutorial, go right here to this timestamp. And for everybody else, here's the announcements. First of all, hi, how are you? It's been a minute, huh? I have been very busy, way busier than I thought that I would be. And it has really eaten into my time to do these tutorials. So I am I can't even tell you how excited I am to be finally back here filming again. And I really am going to make an effort to get out a tutorial a month. No promises, but I will definitely, this channel's not dead. I'm still here. I figured I would let you all know what my festival schedule is for this year. I am kind of taking it easy, so the only big festival I'm going to this year is Dance Festopia, which is in September, and it's in Kansas, and I hear a lot of good things. I will be hosting a Kandi meetup at that festival. I don't have the details since it's in September, but I will talk more about it as we get closer. Other than that, I've got some local shows and festivals here in Minnesota that I'll be going to, and there is a pretty decent chance that I will go out for either Big Dub or Moonrise on the East Coast this year, but I am not sure which, and I will make announcements on my social media when I figure it out. So that means if you don't live in Minnesota and you want to trade Kandi with me, your best bet is going to be find me at Dance Festopia. While I do post tutorials here on YouTube, I am also very active on other platforms, way more than I'm active on here. So if you would like to see more of me, go ahead and follow me on Instagram or TikTok. Those are down below. And finally, if you would like one of these cutie little dinosaur babies, but you don't want to make one yourself, I have linked Teddy Bears Beads down below as well. They are the originator of this pattern, and they have a shop where they sell them. All right, on with the tutorial. Supplies. For this, you are going to need 2 different colors of pony bead plus 2 black beads for the eyes. You're going to need stretchy string. I use 1.2 millimeter cloth covered stretch cord. I get it off of Amazon. You can get it at Walmart. You can get it at Dollar Tree. Scissors for cutting the string. And I like to use 2 plastic yarn needles. This is specifically going to come in handy at the very end. The technique that we use to do the spine little, I don't know, fin? That's not the right word, but this thing. Is easiest if you have 2 needles. For the rest of it, you'll just be using 1 needle. The techniques that we're going to be using for this pattern are primarily multi-stitch and then ladder stitch at the very end. So if you are unfamiliar with multi-stitch or if you are unfamiliar with ladder stitch, I do have tutorials for those. I will put them up here in the corner. So if you would like to review those and then come back, you can do so. Otherwise, let's get going. First things first, you're going to cut off a length of string about 3 feet long. I'm using rainbow string so it shows up well against the background. You can use whatever color you would like. Add the needle onto one end, real easy there, and we are going to start off by making essentially a Kandi single that is 16 beads long. The pattern that we're going to do is 6 dark green. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1 black. 3 green, 1, 2, 3, 1 black, and 5 green. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we'll take off the needle. That is a total of 16 beads there. The row we're starting with is where his eyes are. And we're just going to tie that off pretty tight in a circle. I just use a triple granny knot for this. You can use a surgeon's knot. You can use whatever knot you like as long as it does not come untied. And we have a long end and a short end. We're going to cut off the short end. And we are going to tie our needle on to the long end. And we'll just do a double knot here. 1, 2. And now we're going to do multi-stitch. So The only thing that is important for this row is when you are adding beads, you want to make sure that you are not adding beads on top of where the eyes are. So in order to make sure I've got my count correct, I like to just run the string over to this bead here. So it is, we've got one spacer bead and then we've got the eye. We're coming out of this bead. Pull it through, not too tight. You want the knot to stay back there. And now we're going to just multi-stitch all the way around. So we're going to end up adding 8 beads. Put it like that so it's easy to work with. So we'll take one bead, we're going to skip over this and go into the next one over, pull it through, just like that. Hold it. Add one bead, we're going to skip over this, go into the next one, etc. So we're going to repeat that all the way around till we're back here. Okay, so we are adding our last bead on this row, and we're going to go in that first bead that we came out of, and then we're also going to go up through the first bead that we added on that row. That's how you step it up. Okay. And we're going to do that exact same thing, go around putting beads in the empty spots 2 more times. So we want 3 rows of multi-stitch on top of that beginning single. I'm going through a little fast here because the multi-stitch tutorial is a different video, but you can see you're just putting beads into the empty spots. So the beginning layer was row 0. The first row we added is row 1. I'm now working on row 2. So we're going to finish row 2. We're going to do row 3 and we're going to come right back here. This is what it should look like at the end of row 2. And this is what it should look like at the end of row 3. You do want to make sure that you've got your string coming out into this little middle spot between the 2 eyes. If your string is coming out somewhere else for some reason, that's totally okay. You can just weave it through that first little top layer of beads there until it is coming out of this bead. Now what you're going to do is you're going to add 1 bead here. So we're on row 4, and just like normal, 1 bead goes here in that little empty spot between the eyes. And then we're going to skip the next spot. So instead of putting a bead here, we're going to actually just go down and up and weave our string through. And when you pull it tight, it pulls together a little bit. Now we're in this next empty spot, we're going to add a bead. And then we're going to skip a bead. We're going to weave through just like that. 2 more times, add a bead and skip a bead and add a bead and skip a bead. And when we skip that last bead, we are going to go up through that first bead we added to finish off the layer. So now we're coming out of this top bead right between his eyes. And we are now going to add, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 beads that are kind of sticking up that we added on that row. We are going to add 4 more beads. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 to add another layer, and that will pull it closed. And the reason that we are weaving the string through here instead of just going straight from this bead into this bead is I like kind of the square shape of their heads, and doing it this way gives it kind of a more square shape along the top. See, the bottom is a little bit more rounded, a little bit more like pointy. There's a little slightly different technique that we do for the bottom to make it look like the bottom of a face. And so, yeah, we'll get there later in the tutorial. If you prefer the look of like a little rounded head or pointed head, you can use that technique for this part, but this is how I like to do them. Okay, so slight diversion aside, we are coming out of this bead, top bead in between the 2 eyes. We are going to add 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sure you're going into that top bead there to finish it off. And then we pull super freaking tight. And it makes this little diamond shape with one of the corners being that top bead there in between the eyes. Now you can tie it off here and then cut your cord and retie it and start again at the bottom, but I am lazy. So instead of doing that, I'm just going to tie a little granny knot here. Just that. And then under like that. So you've got a granny knot situation, and just pull that super tight. And then I'm going to string down through his little face on a diagonal until I am coming out of one of the bottom beads. Doesn't really matter which one you're coming out of. Just want to be coming out of one of these bottom beads here. Now we're going to flip it over and we're going to do the bottom of his face. So for the bottom of his face, it is 2 rows of multi-stitch, just same as we did the top, regular multi-stitch, adding 1 bead in between all of the beads, etc. I'm going to do this off camera. I will come back. This is what it'll look like after you do that first row, and here's what it should look like after row 2. Now we're going to close it off, and we're going to do very close to the same thing we did up top, where we add a bead and skip a bead, but we're going to do a little bit different technique. And just like up top, you do want to make sure that you are adding a bead in this spot right here between the eyes, that dead middle. So there'll be a bead here, skip these, bead here, skip these, and there'll be a bead here. So we're good. We are coming out of the correct bead. If this is confusing to you at all, you can just run your string through the cuff, up, down, until you are coming out right in this spot and start adding beads from there. That is totally fine. But we are going to add 1 bead. Here we go. Oh, that's perfect. And then we are going to actually go through this bead and this bead. And that way, when we pull it tight, it pulls these beads even closer together, and it gives it kind of a more like pointy chin, rounded chin look. Add a bead and skip a bead. Add a bead and skip a bead. Add a bead. Come on. Add a bead and skip a bead. And then don't forget to go up through that first bead that you added on this row and go ahead and pull that tight. Now at this point, if you would like to put anything inside of the head, you can. The original tutorial said you can put like a crumpled up clean grocery bag in there, and that is what I did for this one. I don't know if you can hear. Let me put it right up on the mic so you can kind of hear it, and it does make the head a little like less prone to caving in, but it is also kind of a pain in the butt. So like I didn't do that on this one. It's a much squishier head, and it kind of just pops right back into place. So it is up to you if you would like to do that. I'm not going to do that here in this tutorial because you know how to stuff a grocery bag into a thing, I'm pretty sure. So we are coming out of this bead here. We're going to add 1, 2, 3, 4 beads, 1 bead in between each of those 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. Just like that. So you've got the same little diamond on the top and on the bottom, and you can see the top, see what I mean? The top is like way flatter, and then the bottom is a little bit more rounded. I don't know. I just think it looks cool like this. Now we're going to set this aside. We're not going to tie it off. We're not going to cut the string. We're not even going to take the needle off. We're just going to set it aside while we work on the body. And for the body is a little bit bigger than the head, so we're going to cut off a little bit longer string than we did for the head. Don't worry about the strings being too long. It's much easier to cut off string than it is to add string. So we've got our string and we are going to add the needle, tie just like a loose knot here. So now for the body, you are once again going to do a starting single of 16 beads, but this time it is even easier because it is all dark green. So we're just going to add 16 dark green beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Yay. And then take off the needle and tie it off. Just like that. Cut off the short end, leave the long end long. And tie the needle on to the end of the long end. Dope. I'm going to just run my needle through a couple beads here so that the knot is not right where I need to be working. And we are going to start by doing a row of entirely green. So this is row 0. Row 1 is also going to be all green. We're going to add 1, there we go, 2, you get it. So add 1 row of green, come back here. All right, this is what you should look like after row 1. And for row 2, we are going to add 1 light green bead and 7 green beads. So this is the bottom point of the heart. All right, we added our last bead here, and your string should be coming out of the light green bead. Now we're going to add 1 light green bead here, 6 regular green beads, and 1 light green bead here. So it'll be light green, light green, light green, and then all green around. So go 1, and then remember we're doing 1 more light green bead. Just like that. Okay. That's what it should look like at the end of row 2. Next row, we're going to do light green, and then dark green, and then light green, and then light green. So I don't know what the numbers are, but you get what I mean. Okay, so we are back here. So remember, light green, 1 and 2 to finish the row. All right. This row is going to be all dark green and then light green, right in the middle there. All right. So that's what it should look like at the end of that row. Technically, this is a heart. If you like it like this and you want a shorter, stubbier little body, you can stop building the heart now and just add a couple rows of regular green and then go into the neck. But I am going to make a full-sized one on stream here. So for this next row, we are going to do all dark green except light green and light green. The middle one here is going to be dark green. So I'll show you, we added all of the dark green. So now we're going to go light green, dark green, and light green to finish the row. Okay, so that's what it looks like after that row. And then we're going to go all the way around again, and it's going to be all dark green, except for these two right here are going to be light green. So we got the dark green on, and we're going to do 1 light green and 1 light green. And then finish off the row with one dark green. There we go. Just like that. All right. So now we're going to do just 2 rows of regular dark green multi-stitch. That's to balance it out and make it look a little bit more even. And when you are done, you want to make sure that you have this middle line does not have a bead in it. So because it is in that shape already, we're going to add 2 rows. If for some reason your middle row was the higher row, you would only add 1 row, or you would add 3 rows. You want to just make sure that it has this pattern, because when we connect the head and the neck, we want it to fit together like puzzle pieces, basically. This is what it looks like at the end of 1 row. See what I mean with the middle row being higher here? You don't want that, so we're going to add 1 more row. And that is what it looks like at the end of 2 rows. We are going to close it off and connect it to the head now. So similarly to before, we're going to add a bead, skip a bead, and we want to make sure that we are adding a bead in here. So add, skip, add, skip, add. So we are already coming out of the correct bead to add a bead. And once again, if this is confusing or you lose track, you can always string all the way through until you are coming out of this bead here and start by adding a bead there. Regardless, let's do it. I'm gonna add 1. And we're going to skip 1, and we're going to just go directly across. We're not going to string down because we want this to be kind of rounded to match. So add 1, skip 1, add 1, skip 1, and add 1, skip 1. Perfect. And then string back up through that first bead you added. Make sure you're coming out on the correct layer there. Okay, so we've got 4 beads. We're going to add a bead in between each of them. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And there should be this one. There we go. Pull tight, and you should have a little diamond pattern where one of the points is on that middle row there of the heart. Perfect. So now comes the part where you fit the head to the body. Now, if you don't want any neck at all, you can kind of sew them down together like that. But I do like a little neck on these guys, so I am going to add a row here, and it's just another row of 4. I'm going to go 1. Oh, haha, I see what I'm doing. One moment. Bloop. Before you add your row, make sure that you are coming out of the correct bead. So the corners were the first like smaller row that we added, and then the sides here were the beads we just added. So you want to make sure you're coming out of a bead that we just added, so not a corner bead. And now you can add 1 bead, skip the corner, go into the next non-corner bead, add a bead, skip the corner, add a bead, skip the corner, and last one, add a bead, skip the corner, and that should be the first bead that you came out of for this row. And you pull tight. And you should have 4 beads sticking up, just like that. If you are familiar with the Kandi mushroom, this is going to feel a little bit familiar. And you want to just go up through that bead there, so you're coming out of this new row you've just added. And you should have beads that line up with that middle one there. You're going to take your dino head, you're going to look at the bottom and see, okay, how does this fit? The last row that we added on the Dino Head was not the row with the corners, it is the row with the inside. So how do I describe this with words? We'll call them even and odd rows. So this row with the corners is an even row. This row with the sides of the diamond is an odd row. Currently, the head has ended on an odd row because the last row we added was these non-corner beads. This body, because we just added another row on top of our odd row, is now ending on an even row. When you connect them, you want one to end on an odd row and one to end on an even row. That way you can weave them together and it should fit like puzzle pieces. So I'm going to take, this part is, I have never tried to get this part on camera. Normally when I do this, I am scrunched up to my chest like a little pill bug. So let me try and do this on camera. And if this doesn't work, then we will go to a different point of view for this one shot so that I can show you how it works. Okay, so first thing we do is we line them up. This is the middle of the face. This is the middle of the body. So we're going to want this bead to slot in right here, in between this bead and this bead. Currently, our string is coming out of different random beads. For simplicity's sake, I am going to just string it around to right here so it's coming out of the correct bead. If you struggle with this part at all, you may want to tie these off. Don't cut the strings, but you may want to just tie little safety knots to kind of hold the beads in place and make it so they don't slide around while you're working. So moving my string to the correct spot. Okay. So now from this bead, we're going to go through this like front, middle, neck bead. And then we're going to go back up through this next bead over, just like this. And when we pull it tight, it's going to pull them together like a little hinge. If you're familiar with the Stash Candy mushroom tutorial, this is the same way that you attach the top to the stem. But this one isn't going to be hinged, so we're going to connect it all the way around. Right now it is coming out of the head, so we are going to go into the neck. The next bead over is this one here. So we're going to go through just like this. And I'm not going to bother tightening it until they're all like woven through all the way around. So now it's through the neck. We're going to go back up through the head, and we want this next odd bead. So not the corner bead, we want the next odd bead, which is this one here. Just like that. Okay. And now we're going to go through the next neck bead. Come on. There we go. And then we're turning. We're going to go up through the next odd bead in the head. There we go. And then we're turning, and we're going to go back through the neck. And now we are back at the beginning here, so we're going to go up through, oh God, haha. Okay, we're going to go up through that first bead that we started coming out of. All right, see, so now we've got this sort of Nightmare Before Christmas Sally limb situation, and we are just going to pull this super McFreakin' tight, and the bottom as well, because I didn't tie any knots anywhere. I just winged it. And I'm actually going to, so this string is originally the body string. This string is originally the head string. I'm going to just flip back through this bead here real quick. And then since I have these two dangly strings so helpfully sitting there, I'm going to just tie this off with a triple knot, regular granny knot style. One, yank, two, yank, and three. Boop. There we go. So he is tied off. That is the bulk of the work. We're going to just like that, kind of poke the knot around so it's hidden. And there you go. You got a dino head and body. Now we got to go through and add the arms, the legs, the tail, and the spikes. So for the tail, we are going to take a length of string, not as long as what we used for the head of the body, but still like a good couple feet. And we're going to add 4 beads. 1, 2, 3, 4. And tie that off super McFreakin' tight. Boop. Cut off the short end. There we go. It'll look like that. You're going to add a needle onto the long end. All right. I'm just going to hide the knot by going through this bead here. There we go. Knot's pretty well hidden. And we're going to add 4 beads. We'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 in each corner. Ugh. There we go. One, 2, 3, 4. And on the 4th one, we're going to go through the first bead and the first bead that we added, or I guess the last bead and the first bead that we added, just like that. So you have a little square here, a little diamond, and we're going to add 4 more beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's going to start forcing it up into kind of a cone shape. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then up through that first bead in that row, and we're going to pull tight. We're going to pull tight enough that it makes like a little bowl, which it does not want to do. So you've got to keep it pretty tight, and we're going to do one more row like this. So 4 beads, 1, 2, 3, 4 in those little empty spaces. It's like the tiniest multi-stitch. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then up through that first bead we added on this row. There we go. So you got something that looks like this, right? If you want to make candy raspberries, this is how you do it. You just use different beads, different colored beads. Okay, now what we're going to do, so that was 4 rows of 4, including that starting row, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we are going to do 3 rows of 2. So we're going to add a bead here, right? We're coming out of this bead, we're going to add a bead, and then we are going to skip this and just string directly through the next one, and then add a bead, and skip this and string directly through that next one, and back up through the top. Oop. There we go. So now we've got 4 rows of 4 and 1 row of 2. We're going to do 2 more rows of 2. So very easy. Add a bead, go in through the next one, add a bead, go in through the next one. Oh my God, you're done. You're done with that row. And then we are just going to go back up through that first bead you added on this row and do that one more time. Boop. And boop. And back up. Just like that. Okay. And to finish it off, we're going to add 1 bead. So this is going to be the tip of the tail. It's going to look like this essentially. And so we add 1 bead, go into the other one, and then string back through that bead you just added and go through the opposite side of the first bead. So we started coming out this way, we're going to go back in this way. And when you pull it tight, there you go. That's what it should look like. Now we have to attach it to the base. So we are going to string back up through this tail. Or, I mean, you can tie off and just use new string if that's easier. I like using one continuous string because I hate adding string. So we are just following the existing pattern of the beads, running our needle back up through until we reach that first row of 4. And we have the string coming out of one of those beads on the bottom layer. All right, this is another one that I usually crunch over into pill bug form to do. So let's see how this goes. We've got the front center of the dinosaur, runs up directly through the eyes and up to the top of the head. This is the front, this is the back. So follow this back bead all the way down. And that's where I'm going to connect the tail. So this bead here, let me just mark it so that I don't lose it real quick. Put a marker there for now. Okay, so this bottom bead here is going to connect to this bottom bead here, just like that. And then this top bead here is going to connect to this top bead here. On the sides we have these 2 beads, and so these this bead and this bead and this bead are going to kind of slot in between them. I don't know how well you can see, but it's going to kind of slot in like that. I will do my best to show you here. So, and the reason that I have determined this is a bottom bead is because you've got this very straight line that runs along the top and it runs along the bottom. The sides don't have that same super straight line. That's how I determined that they're the sides. And again, like it's your tail, you can do what you want. This is how I do it. So string is coming out of this bead going that way. We're going to line them up and then run through this bottom bead going directly the opposite way. So string is going out that way, we're going to run it in this way. And then we are going to come back around the other side of the bead and loop it through, just like that. And when we pull tight, it will pull tight to the body. I'm going to try and do this more loosely than I normally do, and see if that gives you a better view of what's going on. So coming out of the bottom bead, we are just going to go straight up to the next bead over, come out of that bead, and these two beads right here are the ones that are going to anchor this side bead. Okay, hopefully this is the way to show you what I'm doing. Okay, so this little like flower shape is where the tail is connecting onto. We're coming out of the top of the side bead here. So we're going to go into the top side bead here, and we're going to go in this way. Just like that. And then we're going to go directly down into the bottom bead. Like that. So you see that almost disappears immediately between the two beads. And we're going to go into the bottom of the side bead, just like that. I am doing this as slowly as I possibly can. I know it is confusing and I apologize. Things are hard sometimes. That is what it's going to look like from the side. And we are now going to move over to our next bead on the tail, which is the top bead. Okay. We are coming out of this side, going that way, which means we're going to find the top bead here on the base, which is this one, and we're going to go into this side, going the opposite way, just like that. And then we'll come back around and loop through the other side of that top bead. So this is where we're at so far. And normally when I do this off camera, I just pull tight as I go. So this is kind of the like expanded out version. Okay, base of the tail, coming out the top bead. We've got one bead left to connect. We're going to go down and through that side bead, just like that. And same way that we connected it on this side, we're going to connect it on this side. So it's these two beads here that we are connecting to. And we are coming out the bottom this time instead of coming out the top. So the only difference is instead of going in the top bead to start, we're going to go in the bottom bead to start. Coming in from this way and going outwards, and then up and back in the top bead there. And back through, down through the top of that side bead. So now the strings are all where they need to be. They're all sewn together. And I'm going to go through and tighten it up, which I suspect I may have to do, a little bit manually. So hang on a second. It's just like tightening shoelaces. You just have to go through and do it like one at a time. I'll be right back. There we go. Okay, it is all tied on now. And I'm just going to tie it off with a regular triple granny knot, same as I do everything always. If you want, you can kind of run the string down to the bottom so the knot's going to be super duper hidden, but that is up to you. That is what I am doing here before tying it off. There we go. And then just like you do on like a cuff or whatever, there you go. The tail is on. That was the hard part. Let's do the arms and legs. So there's kind of two options for the legs, right? You can do them like the arms, just two little things, or you can do, this is the way I prefer to do it, little triangles for the legs instead, so that they're a little different from the arms. Either way, it is totally up to you. I will show you how to do the arms and the legs so that it looks like this, because it's two slightly different ways of doing ladder stitch. But like truly, go nuts, do whatever you want. Now we're going to add the arms and the legs. We're going to take our little string scraps from earlier, and we're going to use those. So I like to look and see there's the heart, okay, little corner, and then one little corner past it. And we will string our string through there. That's where one of the arms is going to go. And we're going to use ladder stitch and just stitch them on, 2 beads. So we'll go 1 and 2. And since they are so short, so little, so baby, we're just going to add it onto one string like that and then tie it off. And when we tie off, we do want to pull ridiculously tight. That's what gives the arms any like posability. And there we go. One more for good luck. And trim. Just like that. That was a bad trim. It's messy, but it's fine. It's not the end of the world. That's what it looks like. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. You just want to make sure you get it in the right spot. So that'll be this bead here. And I will try to do it closer up for you now that I have a shorter string to work with. Ladder stitch is generally easier if you use needles, but since these are so short, they're so little, there's not a whole lot of point to it. Okay, so we're adding 1 bead, goes, each string crisscrosses through it, just like that. And when you pull tight, it's going to sit down like that. And then again, because we are only adding 1 more bead and then we're tying off, we're just going to add it to the front string only. Just like that, and then tie it off. And we are going to pull mega tight. You can experiment with tightness on this, like see, you may want it looser, you may want it tighter, whatever. It is up to you. Ta-da! And we'll just cut these off. And now for his legs, it's going to be the same thing, except on that first, instead of adding 1 bead, you're going to add 2 beads. That's what makes it a little triangle. And I like to just kind of take a look and see, where should his feet go? I think they should go right here. So same thing, we're going to put the kind of short piece of string through. We are going to add 2 beads. 1, 2. And then take the other string and crisscross it through, ladder stitch style. There we go. And then we just pull it down like that. And 1 more bead here. And we just tie it off. And for these, I've been pulling them super freaking tight. Let's see what happens when I don't. Let's do a little experiment. Let's just kind of tie it kind of loosely. Okay, just like that. I think it looks fine. I don't notice a huge difference. I feel like they're a little easier to pose and like stay in one position when the string is super, super tight, but whatever, personal preference. And then we'll take one of these string scraps and we'll do the same thing on the other side. Making sure that it's even, like compared to the other foot. We'll go 1, 2, and 1, 2. Oh my gosh, come on. Don't do this to me. There we go. Boop. Pull it down, and then 1. And I'm just going to pull this out so there's a long end and a short end, because I think I can use this to make Kandi singles later. that has nothing to do with the tutorial. That's just why I'm doing that. Okay, and we pull it tight and we tie it off. Bada bing, bada bang, bada boom, etc. And snip. This one is a little tighter than the other foot. I can already tell. So we're going to need to just wiggle it around a little bit. There we go. It's a cute little guy. And now it's time to give him his little spikes, his little hat, his little head spikes. We are once again starting by cutting off a long piece of string. This one is probably closer to like 5.5 feet long, and it's probably too long, but better too long than too short. We're going to be doing entirely ladder stitch at this point, so I'm going to start by stringing through this bead here, and this is the front corner of the diamond, right in the middle between his two little eyeballs. Just like that, and pull it through, and you want to pull it through until both sides of the string are about the same length. Ideally, they would be exactly the same length. It never quite works out like that. Whatever, it's fine, it doesn't matter. And then we are going to tie a Kandi needle on to both ends. So each side gets a needle. One. Boop. You get a double knot, just because I don't feel like messing around with you a bunch. And two. Here we go. Boom. Okay, we are going to be working entirely with the light green for this. Take one bead, crisscross the strings through it. All the way down. You want to try and keep them as even as you can for this. You're never going to be able to keep them exact, but try. Okay, once that is at the base there, we're going to add one more bead. Cross. And you will see here that is going to take one more bead to get to the other side. So one more bead, crisscross. And now it is the correct length to be able to go into the back corner of the diamond. So we are going to take, this is the right string, we're going to take the right string and go through just like that. Then we're going to take the left string and we're going to go through the opposite way, just like that. And we'll pull it tight. You can see it's a little wibbledy-wobbly, and that is because one string is tighter than the other one. So you just want to kind of like mess with the tension. Ladder stitch especially takes a little bit of practice to like be able to feel the tension and see, oh, my beads are sitting straight, oh, my beads are sitting crooked, like what's making them sit crooked, etc. But anyway, you ladder stitch them on like that. And now we are coming out of this bead. We are going to add one green bead, or light green bead. Crossity. And let me flip him around so you can see. That bead is going to sit right about here. It is currently coming out of this bead into this bead, and now we are going to attach it to the next bead down the spine. That is why I like to line it up with this back row of beads, because then when you add the spikes, it ends up in a pretty straight line. So we go criss, and we go cross, and we pull it a little bit tight. See? And now we're going to repeat that down the back, adding beads as we go. And I'm going to probably end it like here or here, although technically you could try going out onto the tail, and you can do all sorts of things. Like, this is truly whatever you think looks good, whatever you like for this. My little dudes always end up looking different every single time, because it's just a matter of like, what do I think is going to look good? You can see here my neck's a little bit wiggly, so I may end up skipping a bead Usually what I do is and you can see like the gap here is bigger than the gap here. That's how it's going to be. We're doing this by vibes, so I'm just going to add beads down the spine, and I will be right back and show you what I did. Okay, this is a good example real quick. So I've been adding, one bead between each all the way down, but when we get to the neck here, it's a little more crunchy, and if we try to add 2 beads in here, it's going to look stupid. So instead, I'm going to add a bead. 1, 2, just like normal. And then instead of, right, because right now it's coming out of this bead, so this would be the next bead to go into, I'm actually going to skip this bead and I'm going to put them directly into this next bead. And that should sit pretty well. Just like that, and we'll tighten it up. There we go. So yeah, that sits pretty well. And so you can see we skipped a bead, and that is just to kind of have a more uniform look on the crest, whatever this thing is called. So that's where I'm going to stop my little thingy, right above the base of the tail. And you can leave it like this if you want, just like a cutie little small one. But if you want to build it up, you're just going to have to put on another layer with ladder stitch. So we're going to go back up through that last bead we added. Pull it tight. And then I actually like this look, so instead of adding a bead, I'm just going to go through here, through the next bead up. And now I'm going to add a bead into this little gap. So this bead's going to sit here, and it's coming out of this bead, which means we're going into this next bead here, just like that. And we're going to pull it tight. And we're going to add another bead. A lot of this is literally just noodling around until you find something that you like the look of. This is not like a hard and fast rule of this is how you always have to do the spikes on the back or whatever. This is just how I think it looks good with this one. So now we're going to go into this next bead here. And we're going to pull it tight. There we go. And we're going to add another bead, criss-cross. You can see what I mean about the tension. If you pull it too tight, they kind of go all over the place. And we're just going to keep going up, adding beads like you do. Okay, so we've added beads in all of the little gaps there. And you can see that that front gap, I did not add a bead yet. And that's because I kind of like how it looks just like this, like a little mohawk. So instead of adding another bead, I am simply going to tie it off and be done. And normally the way that you do that is same way that we did the arms and the legs, where instead of doing the full crisscross on the last one, we just criss one of them and then tie it off with just like a regular granny knot, little triple granny knot action. Okay, I took off the needles because I don't like tying knots with the needles on. I think they get in the way. So we're just literally going to do a 1, and we're going to pull it super tight, 2, And I know my hands are in the way. I promise all I'm doing is just tying normal knots. I'm not doing anything special. Okay. And 3. Last one. Boom. Just like that. Before I cut off the ends, I am going to just pull it a little bit so that it sits like inside of that top bead and the knot isn't quite as obvious. And then I'm going to cut off the ends just like that. You can also go back through and put glue on your knots if you're worried about them coming undone. That's what I do on Kandi a lot of the time, is I will go through and I'll put a little bit of super glue on the knot just to keep it safe. And there we go. There is your little love dragon slash happy headbanger dinosaur slash whatever you want to call it. Have fun! You have successfully made it to the end of this tutorial. Yay! Hubert is very proud of you, and so am I. I hope that this was helpful. I did my best. This is not the usual type of tutorial that I do, but I think that these little guys are so freaking cute. They're going to be great for Forbidden Kingdom. They're going to be great for Lost Lands. They're going to be great for anime cons, like just whatever. They're super cutie. Theoretically, you could add like a little trapdoor on the bottom and make them into little like stash dudes. And yeah, thank you so much to Teddy Bear Beads for reaching out and giving me this pattern to play with. And thank all of you for watching and sticking around to the end. If you would like to support the channel and support what I do here, I do have a Patreon where you can vote on what the next tutorials are going to be, and I do my best to get those tutorials made. The people who are still my patrons, you will be seeing their names scroll past in just a second here. This video would not have been possible if not for them, and I love each and every one of them personally and deeply. And yeah, I think that's it. Is that it, Hubert? Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one. Fleur.